All right. Hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Niger once again. So, the streak is perhaps one of, if not the most legendary entities in professional wrestling. So, for 21 WrestleManias, The Undertaker, the Fiend, went into WrestleMania and defeated his opponent 21 times in a row. Well, with the exception of WrestleMania 10 and 16, but who's counting anyway? So, for 21 straight WrestleManias. And the thing about the Undertaker streak is that for a couple things. For starters, the amount of names, the amount of future and former world champions, future and former Hall of Famers, and just overall legends in the business is definitely not to be understated. Like the Undertaker's streak, he wasn't just a bunch of it pretty much wasn't 21 jabronis. There were a couple sore thumbs, if you will, when it comes to the streak, but for the most part, definitely a who's who when it comes to when it comes to who the Undertaker defeated at WrestleMania. Sometimes repeat opponents, but it's still pretty groovy for the most part. All right, and having some absolutely legendary bouts, some not so much, but having some absolutely legendary bouts against guys like Shawn Michaels, against guys like Triple H, against guys like CM Punk, Edge, etc. And of course, the Undertaker, as I mentioned, did that for 21 WrestleManias. But the other thing about the streak is that a lot of people didn't know when it was going to end, and a lot of people felt like it was never going to end, and that's definitely not a bad thing. In fact, quite the opposite. A lot of people felt like the streak shouldn't have ended because of how legendary it is, and with how and with how much it made Undertaker her just even more of an icon in the business. Even without the streak, Undertaker still I think would be pretty iconic within the business. But this streak definitely added even more to that legacy. And one of the major things of that legacy, even though it's no longer even though the streak is no longer a thing, adding having that legacy is something incredible for the Undertaker. But as the old saying goes, all good things must come to an end. And so at WrestleMania 30, about 10 years ago, the Undertaker finally lost his streak. He finally lost for the first time at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar. And I also will say I have been reviewing older WrestleMania matches for the channel for the month of March. And while WrestleMania 30, while that match between Brock Lesnar and Undertaker didn't quite make the cuts. In fact, I probably won't be reviewing it for a while because I want to get through the rest of the streak, all the other opponents of the streak. I've kind of like wibble wobbled in between streak matches. So I've had like when he fought Jimmy Snuka, or I've had when he battled Triple H, or when he battled Shawn Michaels. So I've kind of gone back and forth in through the timeline. But because it's when the streak ends, I will be saving Brock Lesnar for the Undertaker versus the Undertaker for last. So it may be a little bit before I get to it, but don't worry. When it comes to me and that match, our paths definitely will cross at at some point. However, a lot of people felt like Brock Lesnar breaking the streak wasn't the right call. There are plenty who think it was the right call, but there are plenty who feel like it wasn't the right call. And I think the main thing is when it comes to that and why people feel that way is because the match, from what I heard, wasn't really great. It was kind of sad in a lot of regards, so it wasn't really a five-star classic compared to other matches within the confines of the streak, such as the aforementioned matches again between Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and obviously the Undertaker. But then the other thing is that Brock Lesnar at this point was a made man, and Brock Lesnar, at that point, multiple time world champion, and pretty much almost a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Although with current circumstances that might not be the case, but at that point, guaranteed perhaps Hall of Famer. or done almost everything there is to do in the business, except for mid card titles. But Brock Lesnar's never really been a mid card guy, if you think about it. But so Brock Lesnar, in a lot of people's eyes, being the one to break the streak, it adds to Lesnar a whole lot, but it doesn't. But does it really? Like, hey, did Brock Lesnar really need that win? I don't really think so. But it led to a shocking moment, but things just kind of went from there, with Brock, like already, which is why a lot of people feel like he didn't really need it, and why I kind of feel like he didn't really need it, because Brock was established at this point. And a task such as beating the streak should go to a name not already established, at least to an extent, and you'll see what I mean in a few moments. But but perhaps, but perhaps just someone who's seeking to be established. That's a tall task. As taking this legendary streak, this legendary entity within pro wrestling, and being the first person to conquer it, it is a very big deal, and a lot of people feel like it was kind of wasted on Brock Lesnar. So who should have beaten the streak instead? I'm glad you asked. As here I have five potential names. Some of the most of these I do feel like on my own, but also some of these people have been saying for a while. So I compiled five names of people who I feel like could have benefited more from breaking the streak. Some of these may leave you scratching your head, but with all of these, I'll try my best to explain my reasoning. So the first one on the chopping block is Randy Orton, more specifically the Legend Killer Randy Orton. So this is something I also have to mention about the streak. It was supposed to end a lot of times. There was plenty. Apparently, the discussion had been going on in WWE for years as to who exactly would be beating the streak, who would finally be the one in however many and one, and a lot of names were thrown around, from Edge to who Randy Orton, as we're gonna discuss. Has all kinds of names, and quite a few of them backed out of it out of respect for the Undertaker, and that's what Randy kind of did to an extent. But the other thing is that this was around 2005. This was Legend Killer Randy Orton, and sadly, Randy was kind of a bad boy back then. He was getting in quite a bit of trouble, causing quite a bit of trouble, quite a bit of a stir in the locker room. So him beating the streak, he apparently was planned, and that was the plan, which if you're gonna call yourself the Legend Killer, or it doesn't get more legendary to kill than the streak, and so it would seem almost natural for the plan to beat for Randy Orton, I should say, to beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania and finally be the one to conquer the streak. But of course, that didn't happen. Randy Orton and the Undertaker battled at WrestleMania 21, and of course, Randy Orton came up short. But could you imagine how much stock would have been in Randy Orton's career and his future had he been the one to beat the streak? Now, granted, in hindsight, Randy still going on to have a legendary career that's still going on to this day, in fact, but adding that to his legend at the time as the Legend Killer, or would it just cause it to grow exponentially? Randy wouldn't get his revenge against the Undertaker, though because they would feud continuing on through 2005. So Randy would get his win back, but just a moment like that, I think, definitely would have benefited Randy, at least at the time. But again, hindsight being what it being, or hindsight being what it is, I should say, didn't necessarily need it. The next one I have on the list is an interesting one, and that is John Cena. More specifically, heel John Cena. One of the biggest what ifs in pro wrestling history is, what if Superman, and that being Super Cena, finally went evil? Well, hell, actual Superman even went evil before John Cena, because they never, despite so many opportunities between what I'm about to talk about, or between the Embrace the Hate storyline, or that fateful night at ECW One Night Stand 2006 going against Rob Van Dam. Check that out. I review One Night Stand 2006 if you haven't already. So many opportunities to finally pull the trigger on a John Cena heel turn, on John Cena finally ditching hustle, loyalty, and respect, going into business for himself, brother, and not like literally going into business where he flubs the match, because that's a no no, but you know what I mean. Finally embracing the dark side, but it never happened. But what an opportunity this would have been. And admittedly, this is something that's been talked about a bit. What if John Cena had turned heel after beating the streak? He had even cheated to beat the streak, and I think this was similar to how Adam Blampe booked heel John Cena, or at least discussed heel John Cena way back when. But and I think it would have been interesting for sure, finally having the uber goody John Cena finally snap, finally become evil, and take away from the WWE fans, the same WWE fans who had hated him, take away their one real pride and joy in pro wrestling, and the one constant, that being the Undertaker streak. Ultimately, John Cena never turned heel, though, and probably never will. And to an extent, I do kind of get why him appealing so much to the youth, especially through not only his merch, but Make a Wish and everything like that. Had all the Make a Wish donations and fulfillments and everything that he's done. But man, heel John Cena, that definitely would have been something. But WWE never pulled the trigger on it, unfortunately. Again, I get why, but still, man, what a missed opportunity. But next up on the list, we have Bray Wyatt. So the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt, it ultimately he battled it out at WrestleMania 31, which I just reviewed. I didn't review Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 31, but I did review I did review Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 yesterday, featuring Seth Rollins, of course. If you ever go check out that review. But the thing about how Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31 is that it was the WrestleMania directly after the Undertaker had lost his streak, meaning a lot of the luster was kind of gone from this match. As try as he might, Bray Wyatt it definitely did try to breathe life into the story, and the Undertaker to an extent. But after coming off the year before where Undertaker had lost the streak. Undertaker still came back, and now Bray's having this feud, and it's supposed to be kind of a passing of the torch. At least I think that's what they're going for, but it doesn't really pan out, especially considering Bray Wyatt lost the match. Sadly, this match didn't quite get the oomph or the boost it could have. But what if Brock Lesnar hadn't beaten the streak the year before? What if Bray Wyatt what if Bray Wyatt was going after the Undertaker streak, and what if Bray Wyatt had been the one to break the streak? Bray Wyatt finally, truly definitively getting the torch passed to him, truly becoming the new face of fear. He still called himself the new face of fear, even after he had lost to the Undertaker at Mania. So I guess Bray kind of won, I guess, but yeah, just how beneficial it would have been, but sadly it didn't really get. Sadly, that didn't really pan out. And of course, R.I.P. Bray Wyatt, but just almost feels like another example of WWE not really knowing what to do with Bray. Like, this would have been the perfect opportunity to establish a new major star. The Wyatt family, he's still pretty new to the main roster, only having been on the main roster for a couple of years at this point. But this definitely would have been a huge boost for Bray Wyatt, and to an extent the Wyatt family, but especially for Bray Wyatt. But sadly, it didn't really play out that way. But the next one we have on the list is Triple H. Now, you may be thinking, Nigel, what on earth are you talking about? Of all the people that definitely didn't need to break the streak, Triple H surely didn't need to. Triple H definitely was established. Doesn't that fly in the face of the rules you set? And I normally would agree with you, but I'm more specifically talking about WrestleMania 28. The end of an era match, which I reviewed not last week, but actually a couple weeks ago on the channel. If you haven't already, go check out that review, I should say, as well as my review of Triple H vs. The Undertaker at WrestleMania 27 that I reviewed right before that. But with that match being the end of an era, what would be more befitting of the end of an era than not only beating the streak, but Triple H and Undertaker are retiring, walking off into the sunset together after that match. Now, some have said this is the match where Undertaker should have retired and no longer appeared at WrestleMania, especially Christian Miracle, which I do kind of agree. Like Undertaker retiring, retiring the streak, retiring his career and everything at a perfect 20-0 after a hell of a cell match against Triple H, I think would be a perfect way to ride off into the sunset, but also having Triple H beat the streak and finally put an end to it and have it end in a really awesome, solid match and have them walk off into the sunset together, I think, and also would have made for a very memorable, very bittersweet WrestleMania moment. But sadly, it didn't pan out that way. Hey, we did get the CM Punk match afterwards, but yeah, that would have been, I think that would have been just as good a send off as well. And the last one that I have, and I kind of alluded to this in my video I did last week. If y'all ready, go check out the video I'm about to talk about. But my last pick is Sting. So when I talked about the Undertaker Sting dream match, the dream match that we kind of never got, we technically got in WCW, but it was Sting versus me, Mark Callis, but that's not the Sting Undertaker match we wanted. But when I talked about this, the biggest dream match that never happened, I mentioned that Sting. I probably would have picked Sting to beat the streak. The one guy that Undertaker hasn't fought, technically. He finally going one-on-one with the Undertaker and being the one to conquer the streak, and possibly even have that be the retirement, have Undertaker go on the sunset on that being finally having this confrontation with Sting and finally getting the dream match, and then riding off into the sunset and ending off the career after that, I think would be a really solid send off as well. Having two men whose legacies, and I don't want to I don't want to parrot too much what I said in the video, because I do want you to check out that video as well. I think you guys might find it interesting, but without parroting too much what I already said in that video, having a match like that, a match of this magnitude, having that be the end of the streak, having the streak end on this really big bang, finally having this dream match come to fruition and finally happening, I think would have been a really solid send off for it. And it definitely would have been a really great send off for both men, and whether or not they retire after that, whether Undertaker goes off and does other things, or whether Sting goes off and does other things within WWE, I think having that be a solid send off for the streak, though, I think would be really cool, or would have been really cool. Obviously, it's not going to happen, because both men are now retired. But but I think having a send off like that would have been really awesome, and it would have made for an awesome match, but also a very awesome moment. But yeah, sadly we never got the match, but a guy can dream. But ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. So, thank you all so much for watching this little discussion video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on post notifications, every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. And let me know in the console your thoughts on the not the match, I almost said the match. We will have a match review coming tomorrow, and I think you guys are going to be interested in that. But let me know in the console your thoughts on this discussion video. Who do you think should have beaten the streak? Even if it's not a person I mentioned here, or even if it is a person that I mentioned here, who do you think should have beaten the streak? Do you think the streak should have been beaten at all? Like, if the streak wasn't beaten at all, if like people were saying, if Undertaker retired retired both his career and the streak with a perfect 20-0, I think people would have been satisfied with that, especially going off in the match that it did, that being the Hell in a Cell Triple H and Undertaker, which was billed as the end of an era, but. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.